prepare your t-shirt strategy for the conference.
Yes.
Or there's another pro tip, the alternative pro tip. If you don't care about your t-shirts, don't bring any, because they will give you so many on the WWDC that you'll have things to wear. Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is the podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books to read and want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
or whatever else comes to mind.
Yeah, and today we're wearing exactly the same shirts. Yay! And because we are commenting on WWDC, so Apple's Developers Conference, which happens once a year, happens this year as always in June, and last year we were there. This year we're not there.
Mm-hmm. So just to explain the t-shirts, we're wearing Objective-C t-shirts, so it's like nerd stuff for and sort of a laughing thing for iOS developers these days.
Yeah.
And since this is a developers conference, then it seemed appropriate.
Yeah, if you're an Apple developer, you get the joke. If you're not, or if you're like a 2 or 5 year old daughter of mine, you like the dinosaur. So everybody wins.
All right, so WWDC 2018. This is like you've been to WWDC once, correct?
Yes, the first one in San Jose, and so last year. Yeah.
I've been 3 times in 2014, and then the past 2 years. And this year, as you've mentioned in the past shows, we decided not to go because of things.
Yes.
But we do intend to go back next year, hopefully, if nothing changes our plans for divorce. So we had to watch the big show, the beginning of the conference, which is a 2-hour keynote, a 2-hour ad of Apple, where they point out the holes in your heart that you didn't know you had and the solutions to them so that you buy more stuff. And we watched it at home. And how was it? What do you think? Especially the next morning after you had time to process this and forget some of the details. And how do you feel about the show?
Well, so first of all, this show is half for the public, so for everyone, the upcoming features in the iOS and whatever, and half for us, developers, who are building apps for this ecosystem. So we have our Nozbe apps for iOS, for Mac, and for the watch. So we care about also the nitty-gritty, the behind-the-scenes thing. So when we are watching a keynote like this, we always watch it like with a double standard. So one thing as consumers and people who are using it every day, and also as people who will take advantage of some of the new features for our own good, like for good of our customers. So as a consumer, what I really liked are the productivity stuff. So I really like the productivity stuff, like the Siri things, the workflows built in kind of in the iOS, and the things about the limitations, app limitations, these kind of things. We'll discuss them a little bit deeper now. But I like these kind of changes. So what I liked is that Apple embraced the whole thing about privacy, about distractions, about iPhones making us depend on them and actually addicted to them. So I like that they embrace these themes that've been that have been pretty audible. Like for the last months. So I like the direction there.
All right. So overall, you're feeling positive about the show?
Kind of, but the problem was that before the show we knew almost nothing what was coming, and on one hand I like some of these things because I was really hoping for this workflow thing, and then we'll get to it. But on the other hand, I don't think we've seen like enough. I thought there would be more, and more in the sense of Apple is a big company, and in 1 year that's all they got. It's kind of I'm sure it's not right judgment, because I'm sure they're also working on other stuff that they cannot announce, just like we are working on some stuff that we cannot announce. But it's kind of, really, that's it. It's kind of feeling, in the end of the sale.
Yeah, it was surprising. Normally there are far more leaks just before WWDC, and now we know why there weren't many, because there really wasn't much. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling this was really underwhelming. I'm not saying this is, necessarily a bad thing, and we'll get back to that, but it's one of those slow years, like 2015. So from that perspective, I'm sort of glad we are not there. Like, if I had to pick 2 years in the last 5 years where I would choose not to go to WWDC, it would be 2015 and 2018. Those years where I was not at WWDC. There was no hardware, no new iPads, no new MacBook Pros, which we really expected, and perhaps they are coming fairly soon. But that was rather disappointing. And there was a funny feeling because the show was pretty good. I enjoyed it. There wasn't anything embarrassing like a concert by someone at the end of the show, and Eddie Q in his shirts. But like, the show ended and I was like, okay, so yeah, it was pretty good. And now I'm thinking, okay, so what did they show you? Like the whole digital health thing. And that was really important to me. And okay, workflows, but what was the other 1.5 hours spent on? I didn't remember. I had to think about this. So there wasn't much.
Dark mode. The power of the dark side.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but that's actually the thing. There was a lot of announcements, which I was like, okay, who cares? It's not that they're bad things, but
I mean, come on, Radek. I'm gonna stop you right there. Mm-hmm. What? I mean, come on. Voice memos on all the platforms. Wow!
Yeah, stocks.
Yeah, stocks on all the platforms. Fantastic! What an update! Sure. I was waiting the whole year for this. Finally.
I was sure they will finally. They're talking about, we finally brought stocks to iPad, and we've brought what was there? Voice memos to iPad, and news, and calculator. After 8 years, we'll have calculator on iPad.
Yeah.
No. They brought stocks, but not the calculator.
This reminds me of this. There was this. Many parodies of how Apple was doing the commercials, with the new iPhones and everything. And I remember that there was this. So back in the day when there was iPhone 3G, and then there was 3GS. Right? And then in this one of these parodies was like, so now we introduced the new revolutionary iPhone 3GS, where we added compass.
Yeah. I mean, look, like my problem with some of the stuff on this keynote is that this is like a culmination of a year's work of the most powerful corporation on the planet. So you're expecting a lot, and you're expecting like fundamentals, like things that affect everything. And there are things that are nice, but that are just features, and that don't seem like they should be waiting a year to be updated. Like, we have group FaceTime. Like, okay, cool, but it's just a feature. Like, they could have made a software update for just the FaceTime app in the middle of the year, and we'd be like, oh, cool, right? Or like they added more Animoji and Memoji, and it's like, okay, like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that, it's a toy. I don't care, but like, okay, but the thing is, I think, like, a company like this should be focusing on things like no one else can do, and stuff like this, apps can do. Like, this is like stuff like Animoji and the whole like stickers. Like, this is something for the third-party developers to figure out. And like, we have all the Snapchats and whatnot, which pioneered the filters and the AR effects on faces. Like, why is Apple expending so much effort on this?
Yeah, I don't know. There were many things like that I was like, yeah, really. This warrants a keynote, like this kind of thing, and especially for developers to show them that they can do Memoji. Like really, Animoji. We have the iPhone 10 and we have Animoji, and I'm using Animoji only with my daughters, and also that not very often. So really, it's not something I use. But maybe I'm not the target market. I'm old or whatever. I don't know. But but spending so much time on Memoji, Animoji stuff.
Yeah. So I think the most important sort of piece that encompassed a couple of features was the whole digital health stuff. Would you agree with that?
We showcased a workflow that limits my Instagram usage to 3 times a day, with lots of curse words if I overstep it, in one of the past shows, and we'll link to it in the show notes. So just watch the pre-show there. And really, after we introduced this workflow, I'm not addicted to Instagram that much. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it really works. And even though I know I can hack it and I can get to Instagram anyway if I want to, but this fact that I'm right now launching an Instagram and it says you're going to open Instagram. You've already opened it once. Are you going to open it the second time? There is a decision to be made. It just reminds me that I am deciding to open Instagram, and then I can decide. And very often I click cancel. No. Okay, it was just I was just trying to behave in an irrational way. So fantastic. I mean, really, I love this workflow, and it really limited my usage of Instagram. I'm still enjoying Instagram. I'm still browsing photos every day on Instagram, but I'm not addicted to it anymore.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. It forces you to be intentional. So just to quickly explain, for those that haven't heard about it, the idea is that you have the real Instagram app hidden somewhere very deep, somewhere that you forgot where it is.
In a folder of a folder, very deep.
Yeah, and instead you have a launcher, which is actually a workflow, right? So there is an icon for Instagram, but it's fake Instagram, and it says, okay, you've launched Instagram 0 times out of 3 possible. Do you want to launch it? If yes, it launches Instagram, right? And then when you reach the limit, it says, no, you can't open Instagram. Of course, you can open Instagram because the app is there somewhere, but you don't open it directly, and hopefully you put it somewhere so deep in the folders that you forgot where it is, and so that it works. And we'll put the link in the show notes to the workflow, and you can easily adapt it to other apps like Twitter or whatever. And I'm feeling the same thing. I used to open it 5 to 10 times a day, like compulsively, like for 20-30 seconds, where there's nothing new, where I have 20 seconds in the elevator and like I have to fill it with something. And now I usually go to Instagram once, maybe twice a day. Sometimes I forgot to open Instagram, and I still enjoy Instagram, but the forcing of intentionality to actually do this is very good for my psychology. And actually, as a also small pro tip, I actually adapted this so that Android users can also use it. So if you go to radix.io/instagram.html, it implements the same thing, but just as a web app. So if you open this in the web browser and save it as a sort of pseudo app on the home screen, then it will do the same thing. Ask if you really want to open it, and then open it.
Nice. And you're right. And my limit is 3. That's just the one that you determined in the workflow. And as you said, I open it once, maybe twice a day, sometimes not even once. So it just completely changed my behavior on the iPhone. That's why I really think I agree with you. These features for iOS, like the limits on the apps, analyzing which apps you use, they are really crucial and they are really important, and they are a big thing. This is a big deal because they will really help people shape the way they use their devices. So I'm really happy about it.
So I want to describe in quickly what those features actually are, because there's a lot of them. First of all, it's reports. How much time over each day, over the past week, you spend in each individual app, how many times you picked up your phone, because that's also a thing. It's not just total time, but it's the compulsivity of it, that you pick up your phone and like open it like 100 times a day. But why, right?
Yeah.
You don't actually need it 100 times a day. It's just a compulsive behavior. It's app limits. So you can set a maximum time per day for an individual app or for a category of apps, say social media, and then it says, no, you've reached the limit. And you can sort of, you can override it. But again, it forces intentionality on it. There's a feature called downtime. So you can set a time, say from 10 p.m. until 8 a.m. And during that time, only selected few apps that you choose and the phone will work. So you don't have, you won't just compulsively, browse it even though you should be going to bed, or you won't have a good night's sleep. There's better notifications. They group together so there's less noise. And it's easier to change settings for notifications for an app. So when you have a notification you don't like, then if you swipe to the right or you 3D touch it, then you have like from there, not go deep into settings, but from a notification, you can change settings and like remove notifications for an app completely, or change the notifications to be delivered silently. So only like badge, but no notifications. There's intelligent suggestions to kill notifications of apps you don't use. So you get a notification with spam like, hey, you haven't opened me in a long while, which like games often do. And if it's an app you haven't opened in a long while, there will be like an additional UI over it with iOS suggesting, hey, do you want to keep it? Or do you want to actually remove this notification? So even more sort of suggesting to you what's probably you would choose to do, but there's friction to manually disable it. There's bedtime do not disturb. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. There's bedtime do not disturb. So when you have the do not disturb set for a specific time, you can not just as in downtime, like block other things, but you can hide notifications during that time. So you can use the phone, but there won't be any notifications popping up. And that's good, first of all, because like there's notifications coming in late at night where you should be going to sleep. Or I see that in myself, that I wake up, I have to look at my phone to turn off the alarm clock, and then I see like 5 notifications that happened over the night. And instead of continuing with my morning routine, I check out those notifications. And this way, until the set time or you manually disable the bedtime do not disturb, the notifications will be hidden. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I want to just jump on the notifications thing. So this is big as well. I was very glad to see that yesterday, because right now I am doing this labor of when I see a stupid notification, I am going to settings, notifications, search for the app, and then decide what to do with it. But it's a lot of work, really. And especially if you have many apps on your iPhone, then good luck finding the one that was just notifying you, So it's really hard. That's why doing this, like in situ, like in this moment when you get notification, no, never again. It's so good. Yes. I love it, and especially for me as an Apple Watch user, very often the notifications automatically propagate to the watch. So I get them on the watch, and of course I can fine tune the notifications on the watch. But again, it's lots of work. But then if I remove them from the phone, they will not propagate to the watch anymore. So that's really handy, and I'm really glad it made to the keynote. I mean, made to the feature set of this iOS 12 update. And another thing that I wanted to mention, as well as you mentioned with the not receiving so many notifications. So there's a pro tip for you if you're using WhatsApp. So for example, I'm using WhatsApp, and I am a part of many groups in WhatsApp, like parents, this class, that class, several groups. Just because I'm a parent and I have kids at school, that's it. And in my here local environment, we use WhatsApp a lot. So I basically muted all the groups. So there is an option to mute a group, so you don't get push notifications for each message, because WhatsApp is still a messaging app, and I want to receive push notifications from a person. So if somebody messages me through WhatsApp, I want the push notification because it might be something serious, something important. But with the groups, I mute them all, because when I mute them all, I still see the badge on the on the WhatsApp icon, so I know that the new messages are coming. But again, I don't see the new messages until I open WhatsApp. Again, until I make a conscious decision, I'm going to check WhatsApp and I'm going to check all the new messages. And this is really this saves my life, because being a parent and being a part of so many groups, otherwise I would be just bombarded. And I can see that in my wife, because my wife doesn't do that. So I can see how many messages she keeps receiving on her iPhone. and because we are part of many similar groups, so I can see, two iPhones next to each other. Mine is completely silent, and her is like bum 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 bum, keeps receiving the messages. So to me, this is really important, and this is the same with email, the same with Facebook or other apps, where I prefer, for example, Facebook Messenger is the same. I don't receive push notifications from Facebook Messenger. I just see the badge, and that's it. So whenever there is a badge, I might want to open it because there are no messages coming.
Yeah, I do that with some apps that the notifications are not just all or nothing, but they're graded, right?
Yes.
Like some apps, for example, get a badge, but no other notifications, right? And we've discussed this about a year ago. And we'll put the links to the show notes about the whole saga of notifications and whatnot. Yeah, in general, like this whole digital health thing, the notifications, the disturb, the reports, the app limits. Like, oh man, app limits. Like, put on the shackles on me, please.
Yeah.
This is great. I like that people are starting to realize that this hyper-connectedness, that things are happening all the time and you can always react in a millisecond, it's bad for human psychology. It's just like keeps releasing dopamine and for things that are not worthy of immediate reaction. And it's not just enough to say, take responsibility for your life, for your actions, or it's not a big deal. Like, no. It's this is about human flaws, and technology is great, but we need a little help from technology to manage technology. And this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. And some of this I had to it took so much effort for me to come to a conclusion. I have to take action to manage notifications, to manage distractions, to come up with these crazy hacks with workflow to, and this, the thing with Instagram, the Instagram launcher, I had so many ideas before on how to try to limit my compulsive behavior with all sorts of apps like social media. And they didn't work. It took so many iterations for me to come up with this crazy hack of Instagram launcher to actually take effect, right? And now many of those tools are now just available. Many of the things like managing notifications are made easier, and iOS will suggest to you when it's very likely that muting an app is something that you would like to do. So this is great. What I'm shocked about is that why are we getting this now? I think Apple should have been the first to do stuff like this, to introduce features like this 3 to 5 years ago. I mean, look, I think it's an embarrassment that Google was first with much of this. I mean, on Google I/O, Google introduced many of the same features to Android, which is shocking because Google is an ad-based company.
Yeah.
It's important for their business for you to be spending lots of time in front of technology, for you to be browsing, to have this compulsive behavior with social media. It's like the sort of company for which this is good for business, and yet they were first. And with just notifications management, Android had many of the grouping and easy muting of the whole app from notifications. They had it for years. And Apple, which is the company perfectly aligned in terms of incentives and business to promote digital health, to do features like this without concerns about negative impact for business. They should have been here 3 to 5 years ago and be just beating on Google and Facebook that they can't do this, that only Apple can do this, and Apple cares about your digital health. Why it took so much time?
It's very often, from listening to ATP and to Marco Arment complaining about things, what I really like about him is that he's always saying that we should complain and we should be vocal because at some point Apple will listen, and I just see this, unfortunately, not as a mission statement driven thing, kind of, yes, but not really. I see that as a headline responding kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly. They should be leading.
They should be leading while they're just responding to headlines and to things that are happening. I mean, come on, they are blocking, tracking, and refactoring, remarketing things. Yeah, but they've been there before, like for many years now, and GDPR, so this new privacy law in Europe was just just started, but was announced like 2 years ago. So like they should have been on front end here, especially that as I said, their business is not ad driven. And they're not. Yeah. They're kind of responding. They're like, this was kind of my experience throughout the whole keynote. That they are like responding to not really leading, but responding to things, you know. And
I think the optics of this are really bad because like there's no doubt that the whole digital health thing, they've been working on this for at least a year. You know, stuff like this takes time, and like given the pace of like features in iOS, you can be sure that they worked on this for at least a year. But just like a month ago, Google announced many of the same features, and so it looks like Apple is just like trying to catch up so they don't look bad. Like the optics for this, like it's like marketing wise, like man, they really messed it up.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, apart from that, the Google was first. For me, what I want to believe that Apple is a company that does good, and I really want to believe that. I trust with their privacy and privacy first mindset. But as you said, their actions are not as fast. I mean, they should be leading this on many fronts, and they are not, and they're catching up. So really, I'm like, please, Apple, like, just, be there first. I mean, like, if this is something you believe in, put your money when your mouth is and focus on it first and not catch up with the rest of the industry. I mean, like GDPR is already in effect and we're catching up to GDPR now. I mean, come on.
Laws are always like lagging behind.
Exactly.
And so like at the moment where something as big as European Union enacts this like really big complicated law about privacy and puts new responsibilities to companies, like that's the point where like all of the technical part and like companies like Apple, they should be like well ahead of this. And to some extent they were, but like not enough.
Yeah, and the same can be said, for example, to CarPlay. I am a user of CarPlay. In my car, I have CarPlay, which usually works. And I never know who to blame, the car manufacturer or the CarPlay standard, because sometimes I just connect my phone and it just doesn't work anymore. But anyway, on CarPlay, finally, they are letting third-party mapping apps. Like, come on! I mean, and this kind of monopolistic mindset. We can let many apps to CarPlay, but not other maps. Because we have the best maps. We know the best maps, and our maps are the best. So we don't see any point of having Waze or Google. Especially Google, because we hate Google. So again. Another finally, I will be able to use Waze in my car, which is a good alternative to Apple Maps, especially in Europe, where in Europe Apple Maps lags behind. When I'm in the States, I really like Apple Maps, but here in Europe, it's there's still things missing here. And again, this is kind of don't be evil Google mindset of actually being evil, but saying that they are not, of not letting companies do their stuff, and well, finally they're breaking this, which is good. I'm happy, but it took them also quite a while to do it, and I don't get it. I'm buying a very expensive car with this CarPlay thing. I want to take advantage of it, but then you're limiting to just a few apps that I can use. So.
All right, let's turn things more positive. Let's talk about workflow. Yeah.
So we've been hoping, and when they announced, before last year's WWDC, they announced that they acquired workflow. So it was, so we knew that there is no way they will announce anything last year because they just acquired them. So there's.
Yeah, and we feared that it's an acqui-hire, that they will, they bought workflow because the business didn't work. And they'll shut it down and put the brilliant minds behind workflow to work on some boring feature, and the app will be killed. That didn't happen, thankfully.
So two things actually didn't happen. So first of all, they kept maintaining workflow app as is and updated it very frequently. So, I mean, very frequently, relatively frequently to an app that was supposed to die. So
Far more frequently than most Apple apps. Like they updated like twice or 3 times a year.
You see, so so thanks for that. So the workflow app is still a good app. We are still using it. It works very well on the iPhone X, so it's good. And the second thing, they did use the minds behind it for the same purpose. So what we've seen yesterday, this is workflow. The Siri Shortcuts app is workflow rebranded. It is this app. It might be a little bit different, a little bit, I don't know, a bit designed differently, but it's very similar. So it is.
Yeah.
It is a new version of workflow by Apple.
I was really paying really close attention to how it looks, and like some design elements changed. Like the actions are from in a sheet from the bottom, but like I was paying attention to the blocks, and it's like, no, this is workflow. This is the same thing.
Yes.
They redesigned it, but like they didn't start from scratch. Well, we can't download this app yet. It's not part of iOS 12 build, so we don't know everything. But as far as we can see, it's not like they started from scratch and made a more user-friendly version of workflow which can do like 2% of the things. It looked like they just rebranded workflow and integrated it with the system.
And with Siri. So hopefully they made Siri more intelligent just with that.
Yeah, so for most apps, even if I wouldn't be excited if it was acquired by Apple, even if they kept maintaining it. But workflow is different because workflow is something that if it is made by Apple, then it can do things that normal apps just are not allowed to do because they would be like dangerous, right?
Workflow is a hack. Actually, workflow is a big hack of trying to do as much as you can without being a part of iOS system. That's why we were actually happy that they got acquired, because we were hoping this would just be taken to a different level thanks to the integration of iOS. And this is what it looks like. I mean, with the integration with Siri, with all the other commands, it looks like they did integrate it deeper. So hopefully we will not lose lots of workflows, but we will get lots of new other things. And maybe this will prompt me to use voice to prompt my morning routine or morning journaling or things like that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I wouldn't. Well, I would be deeply disappointed if they removed all of the sort of scripting features, the whole ifs and loops and whatnot, and just stuck to simple commands, because that would destroy like much of the functionality of workflow. So we'll see. We'll see how much system integration we will have. Like the thing we know now is Siri. So first of all, you can trigger for Siri, and second of all, you can have it like reply to Siri, but presumably it will have more magic powers that only iOS can do and normal apps are not allowed to have, which would be very powerful. And also, like, it's really interesting that even though they rebranded it, even the icon, it like in the colors, like it still resembles, like you can see that it's still workflow. So yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, but the only disappointment that I got today was when I upgraded my iPod Touch to the iOS 12. I didn't see the app, and I was like, "Come on!" Also, the Measures app. The Measures app. It's also not part of the iOS.
No, it is. I think the iPod might be too old to support it.
Of course, because it doesn't have the Bionic whatever chip.
No, or maybe. No. It doesn't have to have Bionic, but I have it on my iPad, the app. I haven't tested it yet, but it's there. And also, yes, I did install iOS 12 on my iPad, which is crazy, but actually it works so far, for now.
Don't tempt me, please. Don't tempt me. No, I will do it. Don't tempt me. It's my main machine. No, I cannot install iOS beta on my main machine.
You can't do this because when you travel, the iPad is all you have. I travel with my Mac and my iPad, so I always have an alternative, right?
Okay, so I'll be, maybe I'll just wait until beta 2 and like in 2 weeks, and maybe I'll just pull the plug if you say that it's going to be like reliable for you. So I'll be listening to your feedback.
All right. Do we want to talk about the Mac, or do you have anything else that's really interesting in terms of iOS stuff?
No, the watch. I just wanted to.
Anything interesting for the watch?
Walkie-talkie was fun. Walkie-talkie. I can do walkie-talkie on the watch. It's so fun.
Whatever.
Yeah. No. So just the fact that the background, what I mentioned, Marco Arment said if he complains, sometimes people are listening, and I think they were listening to him complaining about background audio because there will be background audio on the watch. So they are bringing the podcasts on the watch, and Marco Arment probably will be able to build Overcast for the Apple Watch, which is good because I want to be running only with the watch and listening to the podcast on the watch. And again, I hope Audible, which is a big company, will also use some of its resources to build, audiobooks listening. Because if the background audio is there, they can actually build a client for the watch. So just imagine that, running with a book on the watch or running with the podcast on the watch. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say that is the biggest news. I don't have the watch anymore, so I don't care as much. But I was. That's a small feature that allows like big new things. So this is good. But otherwise, like I was browsing the API diffs, and there's nothing there. Like that's pretty much the only thing. So like again, a year passed, and something a really important product for them, and it's like there's pretty much nothing there. Just like this, which seems like an omission really that it should have been before. But of course, like if this actually works and there's no other like missing pieces to build Overcast or Audible, that would be a big thing for Apple Watch owners. Yeah,
but what they didn't do, as you mentioned, they didn't really change the APIs on the Apple Watch. Yeah. So it's not. So I don't think we can do much more with our Nozbe app on the Apple Watch. We will have to check, but I don't think so. And this is a shame because it's slow, and it's not slow because of us.
Pretty much the only thing I think we can do now is the notifications can be a little bit more interactive, but like small changes, and you can add Siri shortcuts to the Siri watch face.
Oh yeah, that's
because
true.
It's Siri shortcuts.
Exactly. So
right.
And I watched the State of the Union actually. So it's pretty easy to add it also to the watch face, and and this is something we might be considering to add if it's not lots of work, but I don't think there is no other reason for us to rebuild the app from scratch because there is nothing that would speed this up or whatever. So my concern, like they were telling all these things about how iOS 12 will be so much faster. They were not saying how Watch will be so much faster. And really, my Apple Watch Series 2 is not a very fast watch. They say Series 3 it is. I haven't bought the Series 3 because I was waiting the whole year for the LTE version, which never came. So on the markets where I live. So anyway, that's for the watch. Nothing really fundamental there.
Yeah. The last small thing, but like small feature, but important for me for iOS is software to passwords. So there's real system integration for third-party password managers. So you can have one password, which is not a hack, but it just seamlessly integrates in the system. You have Safari and apps auto-generate good passwords for you. You have autofill of two-factor authentication codes from SMS. Again, this works both the whole password thing, both for iCloud Keychain and for like 1Password, the same thing. So yeah, that's cool, but nothing really much there. Yeah.
So let's move then to Mac OS and the dark side of the Mac OS.
Okay, it has dark mode. Whatever. Moving on. It has redesigned App Store.
Yeah,
that's a big deal. The Mac App Store has been dead, pretty much dead.
And they convince they convinced some developers to get back to the App Store. They convinced Panic and other developers to get back to Mac App Store, which is a big deal because there was the whole shift of major developers showing basically the finger to Apple and saying, no, Mac OS App Store is not for us because it's dead. But apparently they hired a few people to do something about it because it was completely dead. Yes.
Yeah, it was completely redesigned. You can see very much inspired by iOS App Store, but not like before where it was a web view and like it was crammed like iOS App Store. This is like redesigned. It makes more sense for the Mac. It's much nicer. It has much more editorial. Presumably, but I don't know the details. It also has like some improvements in terms of like entitlement, security, and like boring stuff, which was part of the reason why companies like Panic and Barebones not just left Mac App Store, but wrote big popular blog posts about why they left Mac App Store that a lot of other developers were inspired by. So hopefully this is important that big developers like this, not big companies, but like popular sort of household names go back to Mac App Store, because I think that's part of the reason why Mac App Store was dead, not just because of Apple sort of not doing anything about it, but people didn't come there very often, which is why you can be pretty prominently featured on Mac App Store, as we are, and like the sales are like just like nothing.
Yeah.
So big hope as for this for third-party developers. Like a good Mac App Store might make it much easier to make a living on Mac App Store, to make a good business on Mac App Store. It was very hard before.
Yeah, hopefully we already got featured on the iOS App Store in this new kind of editorial part. So in a few markets a few months ago. So hopefully working together with Apple and being a good citizen helps us get more featured in this new environment. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah.
More than that, like not much else in the Mac. A couple of nice new features, but like small features, like nothing really that you'd wait for.
I mean, come on. Let me repeat that. Voice memos, man. Voice memos.
And stocks. And stocks. Okay. You have voice memos, stocks, news, home. On the Mac, cool. You have better screenshots. Cool. You have some minor improvements to Finder. Cool. And you have dark mode. Great. All cool, but not a huge deal. Just like improvements.
Yeah. Generally, what I really like across the board was what you already mentioned, but I want to repeat that. Multi-person FaceTime. Finally. So I there was no reason, like they had before FaceTime and iMessage, they already had a group video calling like in, I don't know, 7 years ago or 10 years ago, and it worked. And now they introduced FaceTime like I don't know how many years ago, and so many years without group video calling. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that it just took them so much time to get there. In our case, we might try it once we get the hang of it, for example, and in our design fight, we call it design time. we'll try to use it.
Okay, come on. Do you really believe that? Like, how many times is FaceTime just like not reliable at all, just between two people? And how likely do you think it is that it will be great between 6 people?
32 people.
I somehow doubt it. Yeah.
We can get the whole company and have all hands meeting. It's gonna be great. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm happy that it's there because in some cases
sure.
I prefer it's just easier to set this up than set a Zoom. Although the Zoom company can be calm, we will still be paying customers. We'll be still be using Zoom for most of our video conferencing because it's cross-platform.
All right. As for the Mac, I think the last thing to mention, apart from iOS apps, which we'll get to in a moment, is security. Lots of like little improvements to security, which is great, but also it's like finally Mac is really lagging behind in terms of underlying technology behind iOS, and there's a bunch of new improvements in macOS Mojave, which are really like things that I would have expected them to have done years ago. So good on them, but again, like I really think, and I think we should talk about it in some future episodes. I think macOS and iOS have to really converge much more, because it's really strange to be such a chasm in terms of like fundamental technologies upon which apps are built.
Yeah, and they showcased that probably in the future, when we build a new iOS app for the iPad, we can port it easily to the Mac, which, yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, so the couple of new apps that they've added to macOS, like the
voice messages,
yeah, and stocks are actually ported iOS apps to the Mac, and this is this new technology codenamed Marzipan, which is coming next year supposedly. I think this is necessary. I think this will save the Mac. Like, it's just ridiculous how many apps are just not on the Mac because it's too expensive, takes too much time to port to Mac OS because of the like huge difference in how you build those apps, and not because of like fundamental differences between the platform, just differences in technology. And this is like late. Like I think they should have done it years ago, and this is still next year.
Like they woke up last year that they actually need the Mac Pro, right?
Yeah.
So now they're doing everything to be good with pro users and pro developers. And for me, yesterday's keynote was just a big manifesto saying, we love you pros. We care about the Mac. You see, new Mac App Store. We care about the Mac. You see, Marzipan. We care about the Mac.
That's true.
It was just they were just trying so much. We care about the Mac. The voice memos. So they were really trying to convince, and the dark mode, because you always wanted the dark mode. So they really try to be nice to pros now. And
I agree, and I appreciate it. It's just like some of this stuff is like good, like finally. They will ship this next year, supposedly, to developers, so we have time. They have time to improve this, and we'll see how this works. But there are concerns if this technology is actually going to be very good. I will link in the show notes to a couple of tweets, and like people are saying that it, like so far, those apps, they feel like a resizable simulator, like iOS simulator on the Mac. That it's kind of slow, and that the UI is clunky. Like it's really like iOS apps. Like that's not the route I would expect them to go in. I thought they will make the same toolkit with like all of the changes, like add menus and keyboard and mouse, and like allow you to expend relatively little effort to change it to actually use all of the Mac UI. But like much of it is like really the same. You have the same navigation, the same pop-ups that didn't exist on the Mac, just in a window. So there are concerns if this is a technology that will bridge the gap so that you can make a great app for iOS and with like 5-10% more effort make a great app on Mac, or if it's something that you expend 2% more effort and make a mediocre Mac app, which is better than nothing. But
yeah, so I would argue, when you run a business like Nozbe, you have to make many compromises, and I think a good compromise, having a native app on the iOS and on the iPad, and then porting it to the Mac, it's already a win. But I think it's going to be better, because you just remember they said it's going to be next year. So what they did is that I'm sure, like Apple, they hurried up to port voice memos and stocks right now already to show us something. But I'm sure it's like really big work in progress. So what we'll see next year is going to be different, and of course it all depends what kind of APIs we will get, and then we will know some. And I'm sure that some developers will be completely lazy and will just port it like as is, and will just make no effort to make the app a great app for the Mac. But if they give us the APIs we need, we will be able to work, instead of 5%, 6% or 7% more, and really make the app, polish the app so that it looks great on the Mac.
This is what I'm hoping for, and this is also interesting, especially with the strategy, at least so far, that it really feels like iOS apps on the Mac and not, just technology for Mac apps that are simple to port. Which is that it really feels like, man, the ARM processors on the Mac like now are like happening for sure, right? Because now like maybe you could presumably have just one app on one single unified app store and just run it on the Mac. It'd be interesting, really interesting.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Maybe even this year, because they haven't updated the laptops. So there is a possibility of a fall surprise ARM laptop.
Maybe, yeah. So that stuff we didn't get. New laptops, which we expected, and
new iPad
iPads.
Pros. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I would add a very few like developer tools. Like really, often it is like there's a keynote with like more user-facing features, and then there's the developer state of the union, and there's a lot. There's like completely new tools for developers, so many APIs that like it's hard to sell on the keynote because it's not a feature. It's a feature for developers to make great apps. And there's very few new APIs. There isn't Swift 5, just Swift 4.2. There are pretty much no new extension points. I think the only thing is the password manager extension point. There's two areas where they added a lot of new stuff, and that's machine learning and augmented reality. And cool, I'm okay with that, but like it's not like general. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nothing very relevant to us, at least not yet. Uh-huh. It's like for a subset of apps, and for general like all apps, very few new things. And I wonder why is that? That it's such a slow year. Is it just that Apple is doomed and they've made they just it's all they've got, or is there some sort of change in strategy in terms of releases and whatnot?
Yeah, coming back to this notion of ARM on laptops, if it's happening, then I think it might be drawing on lots of resources for Apple to actually do this transition. So if they are working on it right now, like really working on this, it might be drawing lots of resources because porting existing Mac to ARM might be really a big deal and big a project. So one thing. Second thing, you got Xcode in dark mode, and you can use cursor 3 times. I mean, come on, like this is fantastic.
No, this is stuff. Xcode is still a bad code editor.
Yeah. So I don't know why it's so slow. We'll see in the future.
Well, look, there've been complaints about quality declining with iOS releases for many months after the release, for many years, and they've been talking about it, and but nothing really changed. And I think that there's a possibility that they really took it to their hearts and decided that making a yearly release with, jam-packed with new features and like forcing teams to finish by the deadline and not based on how much stuff they have to finish a feature is actually not that good of an idea. And maybe they've switched to something more of a 2-year cycle with the years in between, just being like in between years.
Not even that. I mean, just think about it. They launched the Apple file system on iOS as a point release last year.
True.
So maybe that's the thing. They focus on some of the important stuff. Then they work on the other important stuff, and they just launch it during the year. So not even 2-year release. We'll see.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's another topic for another show because we have to wrap up soon. But I think
yes.
They're sort of living in the past with this yearly schedule. I mean, small, tiny companies with few resources can ship 10 times a year without, bad things happening. And somehow Apple struggles every year with really serious and really annoying bugs that make it really a chore to use iOS for 2 years of a year until they fix like really egregious bugs.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, we'll see how this goes. But we are excited about a few things. We are not really excited about the rest of the stuff. I'm not really into this augmented reality yet. I'm not really into machine learning yet. I see the benefits and I see some things, but nothing we are using yet, or nothing we can announce. Anyway, the thing is that like especially augmented reality, I'm sharing Marco Arman's position here. I don't see that much of a benefit yet. I hope killer apps will show up at some point by other developers. So as a consumer, as a user, I'm waiting for that. I played like for a second last year with the IKEA app, to put furniture in my house just to see how this looks like. So on this front, I like Legos. It was a nice demo of Legos, but nothing I would play. So yeah.
So hopefully next year will be much more exciting in terms of iOS and macOS and whatnot, and that will be there. Yeah,
and then another thing, you already installed on the iPad the iOS 12.
I did.
I haven't because like last year I did it right away because there were so many iPad features. No, there are not so many. So I'm not,
Yeah, that's exactly the other way around. You install the first beta when there's not a lot of new features. Because when there's a lot of new features, there's a very good possibility that it will just be like there's so much new stuff going on, so many new bugs. And here, like I installed it, I just played it with like for a couple of minutes, but everything just works, like there's no, like I was struggling to find many new changes. I was looking at MacRumors to remember like what did they add in iOS, but also like no immediate like serious bugs or crashes or whatever.
Okay, so you'll report back to me and then maybe in beta 2 I'm gonna install it as well.